What up, guys? Your boy Quake back with a brand new episode of the Diverse Mentality Podcast, number 408. And on this episode, I'm going to mainly talk about Drake just basically dominating with these last three albums that he released. I mean, it's astronomical, some of the records that he's breaking, from surpassing Jay-Z, Michael Jackson, and just doing stuff that like other artists have never done or even accomplished remotely, even close to. So we're going to be talking about that towards the end of the episode. But other than that, let's get into the news. And there really isn't too much crazy news. I was going to mention, some Rick Ross stuff, but I was like, man, I don't want to entertain this guy and the stuff that the bullshit that he's pushing. So I just kind of left that alone. But let's get into the regular news that's happening. And the first thing is J. Cole and Cameron have finally settled their lawsuit. So let's go over this. J. Cole and Cameron have reportedly reached an agreement in principle to end their lawsuit, according to Billboard. If you remember, Cameron filed a lawsuit in October of 2025, stating that Cole still owed him for his verse on Ready 24. The Might Delete Later performance was enjoyed by fans, although Cam was hoping to get a Cole interview out of it. When he couldn't get an interview or a verse, he decided to take action and filed the lawsuit. 2 years later, with Cole having refused to honor his agreement to collaborate with the plaintiff on either a single or the podcast, defendants nevertheless released the sound recording. Cam's lawyers explained. The two eventually hashed things out on Cam's show, Talk with Flea. At the time, it appeared as though things were about to turn a corner. Now, the hatchet has officially been buried. So, yeah, of course, we remember J. Cole appearing on Cameron's podcast, and he said Cameron even admitted he just sent out the lawsuit because he didn't know what else to do, of how to get J. Cole's attention to get him to get on the podcast. And, they just explained back and forth, and, the infamous boom, boom. So boom, with J. Cole was just saying boom, boom, boom every 2 seconds in the interview. But I like J. Cole's rollout, man, of the whole album and doing some interviews here and there. I wish Drake would do some interviews. I think interviews are, we're kind of starving for interviews from these guys, from J. Cole, Kendrick, and Drake. I'm glad at least J. Cole did some interviews and talked to some people instead of just like pretending like he's bigger than the program and not doing a single interview. As far as this album, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I would hope that Kendrick drops an album this year too, because that's really then the big three releasing an album the same year. And then you can really compare, who had the best album out of everyone. To me, so far, it's ICEMAN. So when Kendrick drops, we'll see. I think ICEMAN is better than J. Cole's album, just by a little bit more. But everybody's opinion is different. Some people feel like J. Cole's album is better. Some people feel like Drake's is better. But nonetheless, regardless, they settled this lawsuit, so that's good to hear, and hopefully they have no issues moving forward. Updates on Lil Durk, and the prosecutors are reportedly wanting to add more charges to him. So let's go over this. Lil Durk and his OTF label are trying to keep things moving in all the chaos of his murder for hire case, which also involves other co-defendants and alleged co-conspirators in the 2022 Los Angeles murder of Lil Pab. However, things might get even more complex for them. According to an exclusive All Hip Hop report, they might have more charges against them in the federal LA case. This reportedly comes from a May 21 court filing from the team of DeAndre Wilson, one of Smirk's co-defendants. Furthermore, the filing requested a federal judge to grant bond, and claimed prosecutors told defense lawyers on May 13th that they were deliberating about adding more charges in this case by June 3rd. More specifically, they would reportedly be over two older alleged incidents connected to Durk and OTF. The first is reportedly a January 2022 shooting in Chicago that led to the death of Stefan Mack. Reportedly, unsealed documents claim Durk was responsible, but he received no charges. The second is reportedly an Atlanta shooting in January of 2019. The Voice reportedly faced felony charges, including attempted murder and aggravated assault, but the Fulton County District Attorney's Office dropped them in 2022. Although probable cause reportedly existed for his arrest, prosecutors chose to walk away, and his attorney claimed prosecutors mistakenly believed his association with folks involved in the shooting was enough to connect him. So yeah, they're going deep, man. They really want to get this guy long away. And we're talking about cases from January 2022 and a case from January of 2019. And that's when King Von was alive. I think that was the case where like him and King Von were actually locked up together, because it was in Atlanta that happened. Meanwhile, co-defendant DeAndre Wilson's lawyers claimed those potential new charges could result in a logistical nightmare in Lil Durk's trial, which is currently set for late August of this year. The new charges would require more discovery, arraignments, motions, hearings. The list goes on. Wilson's lawyers argue those potential new charges have nothing to do with their client, and thus he should be out on bond while his actual case develops. Yeah, interesting, man. We'll see if this even happens in the end of August, because a lot of these things, man, like I said, they say it's going to happen this time, then it goes, and all of a sudden new charges, and all of a sudden new things are happening, and it gets pushed back to God knows when, 2028. So, yeah, man, the prosecutors are going for everything, man. They don't care. They want to try to get this guy locked up for life. And it's looking like he's going to have some snitches in the situation, too. So, yeah, we'll see what happens moving forward, but it's not looking good for Lil Durk. Updates on Cardi B and Tasha K's situation. And it looks like Tasha K's husband is in trouble. So let's go over this article. The legal tension between Cardi B and Tasha K continues to build as the rapper isn't taking her foot off the YouTuber's neck. Cardi's years-long legal battle against Tasha K became one of the most closely watched defamation cases involving a major hip-hop artist in recent memory. In 2022, a federal jury sided with Cardi after the rapper sued Tasha K over false accusations of drug use, prostitution, sexually transmitted infections, and infidelity. During the trial, Cardi testified that the repeated claims caused severe emotional distress, anxiety, and damage to her mental health and reputation, particularly during her pregnancy. The jury ultimately awarded Cardi nearly $4 million in damages after determining Tasha K acted with actual malice, a key legal standard in defamation cases involving public figures. Since the verdict, Tasha has continued fighting the judgment through bankruptcy proceedings and appeals, while Cardi has aggressively pursued collection efforts in court. In 2025, reports surfaced that both sides reached a court-approved repayment arrangement requiring Tasha to make structured payments toward the multi-million-dollar judgment over several years. However, complex reports that Cardi is now targeting the blogger's husband, Chikina Kokibi. She alleges that he is helping his wife hide her assets to dodge paying Cardi what she's legally owed. Court documents reportedly show that Cardi claims Kibi fraudulently received, concealed, or diverted the couple's assets, allegedly beginning in 2022, following Tasha losing the court case. The couple is accused of transferring Tasha's assets from Kibi Studios to a new business, leaving the company an empty shell with no assets to which Miss Alamazar could collect, which is Cardi B. That's crazy last name. Collect the Kibi Studios judgment. Kibi Studios was supposed to be responsible for $2.9 million of Tasha K's $4 million judgment. Moreover, it's reported that Kibi created Yellen Entertainment just prior to the $4 million judgment. Cardi B's team alleges this is where the blogger's money is sent from her online businesses and social media pages. Yeah, they're trying to maneuver, obviously. You know, when you get these type of judgments and stuff, you got to make it seem like you don't make no money. So how do you do that? You just pretend that the business, you know, you change everything, you transfer it to a whole different, you know, LLC and pretend like your business doesn't make any money, which I guess give or take you can try to do. But to a certain extent, if you don't hide the paper trails well, they're going to find it and they're going to go after that as well. So we'll see what happens, but she is going after every single penny. And like I said, man, I've always agreed with this judgment because too many platforms push fake information and fake content and fake. Now with AI, it's even worse. And I hate that, man. It makes my job a lot harder because I have to now comb through a bunch of more bullshit to make sure my information's accurate when I'm reporting it. So I'm glad this happened, and I hope more companies get sued by artists and celebrities and stuff because it's ridiculous. It's run rampant. It's even worse because of the AI stuff. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Floyd Mayweather is genuinely an idiot. So let's go over what I'm talking about. And it's got to do with him basically getting high off his own supply. So let's go over this. Floyd Mayweather is facing another blow to his finances after a court ordered him to pay nearly $1 million in retroactive child support. This comes after a Nevada court determined that he's the father of a 4-year-old girl. Per court documents obtained by TMZ Sports, Mayweather was recognized as the child's father back in March. In the ruling, the judge ordered that he pay $32,850 per month in ongoing support, in addition to $933,050 in unpaid back support. The case was initially filed in June 2023 when the child's mother, Paige Moorhead, sought legal confirmation that Mayweather is the father of her daughter. Born in December 2021, Moorhead claimed that she and Mayweather were involved in a long-term relationship for several years until they parted ways. In her filing, Moorhead claimed the relationship ended after she informed Mayweather she was pregnant. She also alleged that he encouraged her to terminate the pregnancy and later dismissed her from her position at Girl Collection, the Las Vegas strip club owned by the retired fighter, where she had reportedly worked for several years. So this is what I'm talking about, getting high off your own supply. He had a strip club. He had these women there working. Instead of keeping business, he indulges with one of the women, gets her pregnant, and now he has to owe child support that he's way behind on. So one, she got a great bag because obviously she got a guy who's supposedly has money, because right now we're coming to find out this guy is like getting robbed left and right. He has one situation where he's gotten robbed $115 million, one that he was owed $200 million, hasn't even paid that. So I don't know. This guy can't live this lavish lifestyle continuously and not box. That's why he's doing these like exhibition matches in these boxes, because he needs new money coming in, because apparently his investments or whatever he's got going on isn't doing well for him. So this is a classic case of mixing pleasure with business and it backfiring really bad on him. So 33, that lady's got like a huge come up, man. $32,850 a month she's going to be making off child support. So Floyd Mayweather is just genuinely a moron. As the months and years go by, 50 said this guy doesn't read his contracts. This guy isn't financially, literate. And it's, as the years go on, it's coming out to be true. So we'll see what happens moving forward, but he's screwed, man. From this situation to the situation of that guy robbing him of $115 million. And literally there's text messages of him begging for his money back and saying, man, you guys robbed me of, for my childhood, all this. I've been working really hard to build this. You got to read contracts, man. You got to read what you're getting yourself into and not just believe that everyone has your best intentions. So, yeah, we'll see what happens moving forward. Lil Wayne has confirmed that the Carter VII is on its way. So let's play the clip.
We got the Carter VI last year. Is the Carter VII coming soon? And if so, is that the case? And maybe you give us maybe a sneak peek if there's any features on the album.
The Carter VII is coming soon. I'm not sure if we're gonna just name my next album the Carter VII, but I got albums coming as well. But I don't know if they're gonna just name it Carter VII or they're gonna wait for another album and name it that. But I got music for days, and what they do is they just come in here and they just grab a bunch of songs and they just put a title on it, like, yo, this Carter VII, so Carter VII coming soon.
Well, that's crazy. First off, if you're not even like paying attention to your own rollouts of albums and stuff, that probably makes sense as to why Carter VI was received so poorly. I would definitely, if you're gonna make have an intentional body of work that you're doing, but I guess he doesn't care. He just records music and just lets the label kind of do whatever they want to do. I disagree with that approach. If you're an artist, definitely be hands-on as much as you can be. That's where you make classic projects. I'm pretty sure he wasn't doing this back in the day. At least I hope not. If that's what he was doing his whole time in his career, then I guess he just got lucky a few times, because most artists, they're intentional of what they want to create, and then they create that later on down the line. But the bad reception of Carter VI, I think we should just leave the Carter series alone. Maybe, I guess, Carter VII, leave it on a better note, hopefully, because it can't get worse than Carter VI. I still don't listen to a single song off Carter VI. It was just that bad of an album. Yeah, so I guess Carter VII is coming, according to Lil Wayne, even though he doesn't know 100%, but I guess that's what he's saying. So we'll see what happens moving forward. I hope it's a great project, man. That's all. I just hope it's a great project. Drake has officially broken an insane amount of records by releasing ICEMAN, Habibti, and Maid of Honor at the same time. So let's go over all these records, who he surpassed, and what some of these records mean. The first record I want to talk about is him being the first artist to debut 3 albums in the top 3, first, second, and third. This is an interesting record because no other artist has done it besides Michael Jackson, but Michael Jackson didn't debut his 3 albums. The week after he passed away, 3 of his albums ended up in the top 3. So they weren't new albums like Drake's. Drake just released 3 brand new ones at the same time and had the first, second, and third slot. This record is impressive, but any artist, I think, in their prime could have done this. But because of the times that certain artists were really in their prime, they couldn't do it. Basically, like Eminem in his prime could have released 3 albums and did 1, 2, and 3 easily. But back then, it was physical CDs. You know, it would cost a lot more money to convince a label to release 3 albums at once, would just be a huge gamble. In today's time with streaming, you know, it makes that a lot easier. So I do believe a lot of artists like 50 Cent when he was in his prime, Kanye West, Lil Wayne, you know, there's quite a few rappers or even just artists in general that could have done this. But because of the CD thing, I think that's why nobody really ever tried to do it. The streaming thing made that a lot easier. That record really isn't insanely impressive. I do feel if artists attempted it, they could have done that. What's the most impressive thing about this record is Drake is doing this 16 years into his career. That is insane. Think about that. Most artists' careers last maybe 4 to 6 years if they're lucky. This guy is 16 years in. He didn't do this in the prime of his career when he was dropping Scorpion and Views and doing 700,000 first week and 1 million first week. He did it 16 years later after a rap battle where a lot of people considered him completely washed and done because Kendrick had his moment. He did it right after that. He decided, hey, I'm going to take this gamble and just drop 3 albums and be the first artist to have the first, second, and third spot on the Billboard charts, which is crazy. You know, that's the really, really impressive part to me is the context behind him doing this is after the battle and 16 years into his career. Because if he would have done this in his prime, it would have been like, cool. So to me, that was the most impressive thing, but that's the first record that he broke, which is crazy in itself. So let's go to the next record. The next record he's broke is now he is the official male soloist with the most #1 hit records, surpassing Michael Jackson officially. Of course, this was going to come in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Eventually, this was going to happen, no doubt about it. And I just have one gripe with this, and I'll talk about that. But he has officially surpassed Michael Jackson for male artists. Now, let's go over the artists that have the most #1s, period. So the group, the Beatles, have 20 #1 hits. Mariah Carey has 19. Rihanna has 14. Taylor Swift has 14. And Drake has 14. So they're all tied at 14 with Rihanna, Taylor Swift, and Drake. And what's funny is Rihanna and Drake actually share 2 of those songs. 2 of those records are actually Rihanna's. What's My Name? And I forget the other one. But yeah, those 2 are kind of between Drake and Rihanna. And then you got Michael Jackson at 13, Madonna at 12, the Supremes at 12, Whitney Houston at 11, and then Janet Jackson, Bruno Mars, and Stevie Wonder at 10. So Drake is the official highest when it comes to a male solo artist, which is a huge accomplishment. He's only 16 years into music, so I think he's still got a lot in him, and he might become the #1 overall, you know, in the next, 10 years. Can he produce another 6 #1 hits? Possibly. Now, here's my gripe with this. The only gripe I have is some of Drake's #1 hits didn't stay at the #1 spot like long at all. They usually stay there for 1 week and then just completely fell off. And that's a huge deal because does that really make it a huge hit record? Or is it because of streaming and because of hype that when an artist drops a record, all of a sudden people are interested in it and it goes #1 and then falls off? That's kind of the issue with streaming is that you can not easily because not every artist is doing it. So I can't say that. That's a wrong word to use. But if you're a big artist and you have like momentum or some type of interest around you and you drop a song, it can go #1 fairly quickly because of streaming. Back then, you would have to work your way. Like Michael Jackson with You Are Not Alone was the first artist to debut a #1 song on the Billboard Hot 100 ever. And that's just with radio play and music videos being played. Not with streaming, which is a lot easier in today's time. Now, these are Drake's #1s, and I'm going to go over them, and I'm going to tell you which ones I feel like are just there and didn't really last, and people didn't really care about them. They just came and went, but they ended up at the #1 spot. So What's My Name? Obviously, huge record. Work, Rihanna, huge record. One Dance, huge record. God's Plan, huge record. In My Feelings, huge. Nice for What, huge. Tootsie Slide is one of those records where it just went a #1 because it was a TikTok dance quick, and then it fell off. Then you got What's Next, which I can't even remember this track. I'm going to be honest with you, man. So that's another one that went to #1. Way Too Sexy as well. Wait For You is a great one. Jimmy Cooks. Slime You Out is another one where it's just like, it is what it is. That record just landed there. First Person Shooter, I believe, stayed at #1 for 2 weeks or more. And then the new record, Janice, STFU. So we'll see where that goes, if it stays at #1, if it starts to fall off at #1. But there's like at least 4 to 5 tracks that are #1s that people, I don't know. I never really hear people play them anymore. People don't really care about them. They just kind of debuted at number one and fell off at number one. Let's go over that. Let's actually see, what tracks stayed at number one, what tracks didn't. And that'll tell you, kind of give you more context of what are actually, to me, what actually are number one records are records that stay at the number one spot for at least 2 weeks or more. The first week, because of streaming, I don't really care because some artists debut there and then they just fall off and then nobody cares about the song anymore. But if you can stay there for a second week, third week, fourth week, whatever, at least 2 weeks, then I think that's a real number one record to me. So if you look at Drake's number one history, you got Wait For You, Future. It stayed at number one for only 1 week. But that was a huge, huge song. I kept hearing it everywhere, at least in my opinion. So that stayed at number one for only 1 week. You got Work with Rihanna, stayed at number one for 9 weeks. See, that's a real number one. You got One Dance for Drake, staying at number one for 10 weeks. That's a real number one to me. God's Plan, you stayed at number one for 11 weeks. To me, that's a real number one. Like when they stay for a long time at number one, to me, that's a real, hit record. You got Nice for What staying there at 8 weeks at number one. You got Jimmy Cook stayed at number one for only 1 week. You got In My Feelings staying at number one for 10 weeks. So there's a lot of Drake songs that went number one that only stayed there for a week. And it's like, those are just records that I think hype was there. People were interested. They got streamed really well the first week. And then after that, people just stopped caring about them. So let's go over the Slime You Out is only 1 week. What's Next is only 1 week. Tootsie Slide was only 1 week. Way Too Sexy was only 1 week. First Person Shooter was only 1 week. What's My Name with Drake and Rihanna was only 1 week. Jimmy Cooks was only 1 week. So he's got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 songs, not including Janice, that stayed at number one for only 1 week. So, but you got to think, he's got a lot of number two records too, man. Number 3 as well. Like at number 2, you got Life Is Good, Hotline Bling, which is crazy. Hotline Bling was all over the place. That should have been actual number one. So there's a few records that Drake had that should have landed at the number one spot. Best I Ever Had, that was all over the place. So, these charts are kind of just interesting. I think streaming has kind of skewed things a little bit. But let's go to Michael Jackson and see how long his number ones actually stayed at number one. Okay, so you got Billie Jean stayed at number one for 7 weeks. Beat It stayed at number one for 3 weeks. You got Rock With You stayed at number one for 4 weeks. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough stayed at number one for only 1 week. Okay, so that's fair. You got Say, 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 Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson stayed at number one for 6 weeks. Black or White stayed at number one for 7 weeks. You're Not Alone stayed at number one for 1 week. The Way You Make Me Feel stayed at number one for 1 week. Man in the Mirror stayed at number one for 2 weeks. Ben stayed at number one for 1 week. Dirty Diana, number one 1 week. I Just Can't Stop Loving You, number one 1 week. And then Bad, number one 1 week. So let's go over how many he has that stayed at number one for only 1 week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 out of 13. So he's, give or take, the same as Drake. Drake has a little bit more, but, I view it as like, I would hope the record stays a little bit longer, but hey, at the end of the day, man, number one is number one. There's nothing you can say or, do about that. It is what it is. I just feel like in today's time, maybe because the music is moving so quickly, that records just kind of go there because of streaming and then just kind of fall off. Maybe the debuting at number one has been a lot easier, but everything else, I don't know, I feel like it's been formulaic in a way in today's time, but hey, Michael had a couple records only stayed at number one for a couple weeks or 1 week as well. There's a debate on that, but at the end of the day, man, Drake surpassed him, whether you like it or not. I'm happy for him. I feel like some of the records, though, don't impact as much as Michael's. But it is what it is, man. Some of the Michael Jackson records, too, they don't really impact like that anyways. I Just Can't Stop Loving You, I didn't really care for that much. Ben, which is a song he released as a kid, I don't really care for that much. Say, 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 Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, I don't really care for. So there's a few records there and there, but at the end of the day, it's opinion, right? Some people might love Tootsie Slide. Some people might love whatever the Sexy For You, whatever the record's called, Way Too Sexy. So to me, it's just all about your opinion at the end of the day, but Drake broke that record. Whether you like it or not, Drake broke the record, and he's got a lot of number 2 records and number 3 as well. So you can't just say, oh, he's only got the number 1 because of this. Like, there's a few records, like I said, Hotline Bling, Best I Ever Had, that should have been number 1s, but just stopped at number 2. So It is what it is, but that record's broken as well, which is crazy. Then he broke the record for being the rapper with the most number one albums ever at 15, which is surpassing Jay-Z, who held that record at number 14. Drake did this in 16 years. Jay-Z, I believe, had 20-something years because Jay-Z basically came out in 1996 and then stopped releasing. His last like solo album was 2017. So you're looking at about 21 years of a career. He did 14 number one albums. And they're including, I think, collab albums, which they're including with Drake as well. So, Drake did it in about 5 years less, 6 years less than Jay-Z did in terms of like time span. But then also Drake, was releasing albums year after year, sometimes 2 albums in a year. And then, so Drake was just working a lot harder. So he completed it about 6 years earlier than Jay-Z did. And, people are going to have comparisons and be like, oh, but Jay-Z's albums are way better. Like all that at the end of the day is your opinion. If Drake didn't have classic music and classic albums, then this next record I'm about to be talking about, he wouldn't be accomplishing. And this next record is insane. And this might actually be the craziest record out of all of them. Drake currently right now simultaneously has 12, yes, you heard me right, 12 albums on the Billboard 200 charting. So if Drake didn't make classic albums and classic music, this wouldn't have been possible. So these are the 12 albums, obviously including ICEMAN, Habibti, and Maid of Honor at number 1, 2, and 3. You have Take Care at number 25, Views at number 40, Some Sexy Songs for You with Party Next Door at number 55, Scorpion at number 65, Certified Lover Boy at number 69, number 81, Thank Me Later, number 96, For All the Dogs, number 130, More Life, and then number 167, Nothing Was the Same. People that are saying like, oh, he has music that's microwavable, McDonald's music, those albums wouldn't be charting. An album that came out with Take Care at number 25 in the year of 2011 would not be charting at number 25. It's literally a top 40 album right now. And that album came out, what? You want to say 15 years ago, whatever the years. Views as well, 2016 album. Scorpion, a 2018 album. Certified Lover Boy, 2021. Thank Me Later, which is a 2010 album. Nothing Was the Same, a 2013 album. Like, if Drake didn't have classics and classic music, he wouldn't be able to do that at the end of the day. So, there's a lot of people that are shitting on his records and just saying this guy is just microwavable McDonald's. And I sound like a straight up Drake defender. I'm a fan of Drake, Kendrick Lamar. I'm a fan of just great music. So I have to kind of just, be like, this is the situation, whether you like it or not. Some people just hate Drake just because they hate him. It's not that they hate the music. They just hate him because they don't like the person, which it is what it is. And they just don't like that he's breaking all these records. It's the next person that comes and breaks Drake's records, if there is a person like a Drake that comes and does those, they're going to hate him as well. They're going to be like, no, but Drake was way better. That's just how it goes. It is what it is. I mean, we're seeing it with Michael Jordan, LeBron James. We're seeing it with all kinds of people where there's records being broken, there's things being done, and people just hate it because they like that person that broke that record originally. And that's just, it is what it is. I don't know. That's how some humans are. Continuing on these records that he broke, first artist ever to debut 10 songs at the number 1 on the Hot 100, which is insane. But I think streaming has helped that a lot. Like I said, it's easier to debut records now with streaming. Biggest streaming debut for a hip-hop song in Spotify history, which is the Make Them Cry, and that surpassed Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us record. The second biggest streaming debut for a hip-hop album in Spotify history. And the first is his own with Certified Lover Boy, which is hilarious. He occupies 9 of the top 10 spots on the Billboard Hot 100, charted a record 42 songs simultaneously on the Hot 100. So all of his songs from those 3 albums charted in the Hot 100, which is crazy. The last person, I think the person that held the record for the most is Morgan Wallen at like 20-something. So he charted 42, all 42 songs. The first artist ever to earn over 400 Hot 100 entries. The next closest one is like 280 something. So he's like leaps and bounds above. But this record, I don't really care for because, you could chart a song at number 99 on the Hot 100 for 1 week and then it falls off and nobody cares about the song. So I don't really care about this guy had these many entries on the Hot 100. Like in today's time with streaming, you can kind of do that. It's very easy. So to me, if you're entering songs at number 90 and number 87 and number 77 and 30, no, not 30s, never mind. The top 40s, I'm fine with. But anything out of the top 40s, I don't really care for because those records come and go. And nobody right now, you can't name the number 67th song on the charts. You can't because you just don't, nobody really cares about those entries. But it's still great. It's cool to, have that record. It's just something there. Most top 10 hits for any hip hop album in Hot 100 history. So yeah, he's got, with What Did I Miss, he's got top 10 hits on the whole album, Iceman. Occupies the entire top 5 biggest streaming debuts for hip hop albums in U.S. history. So yeah, just record after record after record, which is huge, man. No matter how you view Drake, no matter if you like him, dislike him, whatever it is, we're witnessing generational records being broken. We're witnessing a guy whose longevity is unmatched. I mean, there's so many tweets, there's so many posts that you can see saying Drake is completely done after the Kendrick battle. There are people literally saying he's never going to have a number 1 record ever again, which is crazy to me because Drake is a hits machine. To bet against the guy who's had this long longevity because Kendrick Lamar made a diss record that blew up and went crazy is insane. I would never bet against him. I would never bet against Kendrick too. Kendrick is an insane artist. These guys are some of the best in music, especially in hip hop. And to bet against them in any way, shape, or form is crazy to me. I remember when Kendrick released Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, people were saying he's washed, trash. I actually kind of enjoyed the album for the most part, but a lot of people just, we're just hating on him and saying this is garbage. This guy's not making great music. And an artist has a miss here or there. For me personally, I think For All the Dogs was Drake's miss. I feel like that album, I didn't like anything about that album. And this is where I get to the conversation of, I feel Drake and Kendrick both benefited from this beef. And I'm going to explain why. So obviously with Kendrick, he came off of Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Critically reviewing, it was great, but commercial and just hits-wise, people didn't really care. Most people moved on, and people felt does Kendrick really have it? So then obviously the battle happens. It boosts Kendrick. And I think Kendrick benefited way more from the battle than Drake did because obviously Kendrick won the battle. Whether you want to twist it in this way or that way, he did win the battle, and it skyrocketed him. Obviously, not like us being the most streamed song on Spotify with Drake just now beating it, but not like us skyrocketed, gave him a number 1 record, gave him a number 1 with Luther and SZA. GNX sold great. GNX was the most weeks in number 1 for an album for a long time. He was just breaking records himself after the battle and even during the battle. Then Drake takes his break because Drake, you got to think, For All the Dogs came out. It sold 402,000 first week, which is a great first week number. I'm not shitting on that first week number at all. But what we got to think about is Drake was averaging anywhere from 600,000 to 800,000 first week. To go to 400,000, that showed people were losing interest in his music. And the reception for All the Dogs wasn't that great. And then Drake himself was saying, hey, I need to take a break from music. I'm having health problems, stomach problems. And then the battle happens and it reignites. It starts to put a fire under Drake to keep going. And I think both of them sharpened each other. And I think both benefited it because obviously Kendrick benefited from the beef more and skyrocketed to another level again. But then Drake now, because of all these records, do you think Drake would have dropped 3 albums at once if it wasn't for the beef and him having issues with UMG? No, he would have never done that. Now, would he have gotten a number 1 record again? I believe so. Whether he beefed or not, Drake's a hit machine. No debating that. But there's a few things that Drake did that benefited him from the battle. I believe ICEMAN came out to be a great album because of the battle. You can hear a lot more bars, a lot more aggression, a lot more hunger in the music versus For All the Dogs, where I feel like he lost kind of that. He was kind of like, man, I've been at the top for a while. I just want to take a break. That's the way I looked at For All the Dogs, the way I looked at the whole situation there. So both benefited. For Drake, it put a spark under him again to, hey, you know what? Hey, you guys thought I was down and out because of this battle, because I lost that, took an L. Okay, I'm going to show you guys that I'm still that guy. And he did. Look at all these records he's breaking. And then for Kendrick, it was more like, okay, the reception to that album wasn't that great. Okay, let's spark something up. Boom, blows up, gets all these records broken, and it helps him a lot more, obviously, because he actually won the battle too. But for me personally, I make the Who Really Won beef videos, and I have my battle and my war, and I think for me, whoever wins this war, if we're going off of the Drake and Kendrick thing, is who runs this decade, because Kendrick was running this thing about, oh, I'm the best, period, doesn't matter. And then Drake saying I'm the best, period, doesn't matter. Well, Drake won the last decade. He ran that. Let's see who runs this next decade. Let's see if Kendrick has something under his sleeve to release in the following year or not. And can he dominate again after the battle? We'll see. I'm not betting against Kendrick or Drake. I think these two are leagues above a lot of rappers. I think they're in the top 10 of all time, maybe even top 5. I'm willing to bet that. But that's my take on it. Shout out to Drake for beating all these records, for all these numbers. I think whether you like them or not, man, if you're straight up hating on these records and saying, oh, it's not the same, it's not this and that, we're in a different era. First off, you got to get, you know how crazy it is to get 400. I think that ICEMAN did like 460 million streams. You know how crazy it is to get that? And people will say, oh, I think it's botted. I think there's only a certain amount that you can bot, right? You can maybe bot 20 to 30% of that. You can't bot 100%. Like, he can go on tour and sell out every single, and he's done that. So you can't bot that. There's no like botting that you can do to make those kind of numbers. So even with Kendrick, there's all bots. I'm like, dude, you guys, like, there's only to a certain extent numbers can be botted. And I believe that's 20 to 30%. 70%, you got to live up to that. Or at least 80%, you got to live up to that. So that's my take on it. I know there's going to be people hating, whatever it is. People loving it, hating it. Amen. Records are meant to be broken, and Drake's the one that's doing it because he's putting in the work. Consistently releasing music. And whether you like the music or not, it's hitting with somebody because clearly the streams are coming in. To do 460 million or 480 million, whatever the number is in streams, means that a lot of people have to listen to this album and enjoy it. And they're doing that based off of all these charts that he's hitting. So that's my take on it. Let me know what you guys think of all these records. Let me know what you guys think of, just everything that's been going on. So, yeah, let me know. All right, let's get into it. New music. We have Lotto releasing Big Mama, the album. Future and Tyler dropping Game Time. Freddie Gibbs dropped the RBT EP. Polo G dropped Clap. Anderson .Paak dropped K-Pops. G Herbo dropped Thug. Tory Lanez dropped I'm Jiggy from the Lost Tapes 2022. And that's it for new music. Album sales, of course, we know Drake got the first, second, and third spot. So ICEMAN officially sold 459,000 copies the first week and did about 12,000 physical copies. Not physical, but pure album sales, which was, this got a lot of people confused because they're like, oh, how do you do this much numbers, but your pure album sales aren't high? Well, Drake's not selling vinyls. Drake's not bundling packages or doing any physical CD sales. The pure sales on here are just solely from people buying digitally, meaning like iTunes. They just buy the album for $9.99 or $12 or whatever the amount is. So that's where pure sales comes from, is like pure sales isn't just physical CDs, basically what I'm saying. If you buy the full album digitally, it counts as a pure sale. So, he sold about 12,672 of like people actually buying the album digitally, which is great for somebody who's not packaging on like vinyls and all this other stuff. So 459,000, basically 460,000 first week. The second album is obviously Drake Habibti at 114,000. And then Drake is the third spot, Maid of Honor at 109,000. So total, he did about 80,000 copies with all of them combined, which is great, man. That's a huge, huge number that most artists aren't doing. Number 4 is Noah Khan, The Great Divide with 99,000. Number 5 is Ella Langley, Dandelion with 97,000. Number 6 is Morgan Wallen, I'm the Problem with 84,000. Number 7 is Michael Jackson's Thriller with 60,000. Number 8 is Michael Jackson's number 1 Greatest Hits album with 58,000. Number 9 is Lucky Drugs Are Bad, which debuted at number 9 with 54,000. And number 10 is BTS Air Rang with 41,000. Scrolling down, let's see. Chris Brown is a number 19 with 29,000. Number 25 is Drake's Take Care with 26,000. Number 40 is Drake's Views with 20,000. And then that's it for like hip hop related albums. And then the Billboard Hot 100, man. I'm not going to go through everything that Drake charted and what position he charted because it would just take forever. But the top 10, Janice STFU is at number 1, Debut. Number 2 is Ran to Atlanta with Drake. Number 3 is Whisper My Name with Drake. Number 4 is Shebang with Drake. Number 5 is Ella Langley, Choosing Texas. This is the only song that didn't get pushed out of the top 10 because Drake dropped. Number 6 is National Treasures, Drake. Number 7 is Make Them Cry, Drake. Number 8 is Dust, Drake. Number 9, Too Hard for the Radio, Drake. And number 10, Make Them Pay, Drake. And then a bunch of other Drake songs, man. I'm not going to go over all these. This is just too much. He charted all the songs. So let's see actually where it ended up as we scroll down. Billie Jean, Michael Jackson, number 32. That's cool. But yeah, a bunch of Drake records. Human Nature, Michael Jackson, number 44. Beat It, Michael Jackson, number 47. Don Toliver, E85, number 50. Pop That Thing, The Baby, number 51. Don Toliver, Body, number 68. That's interesting. Boss Man, D-Flow, Motion Party, number 77. T.I. Let 'Em Know, number 79. Cinderella, Mac Miller, number 80. Yeah, so the last Drake record charted, which is Stuck, at number 93. So that's the lowest he got in the charts. So from number 1 to 93, he occupied 42% of the Billboard Hot 100, which is insane. That's 42 songs charted. So 42% out of the 100 is 42%. So 42% of the Billboard Hot 100 he occupied, which is insane when you look at it that way. But yeah, huge round of applause to him and the records he's broken. And that's it for today's episode of the Diverse Mentality Podcast. As always, appreciate you guys. Spotify, Deezer, Pocket Cast, all that. Have an amazing night, day, whenever you listen to this, and peace.